The distress beacon aboard the UES Indomitable echoed with the dying screams of slaughtered Thalkara. No one in the galaxy knew how to combat the relentless Zharok invasion. The Thalkara, facing extermination and enslavement, turned to humans for aid. Captain Jamie Doris of the UES Indomitable received their desperate plea. The ruthless Zharok invaders, armed with superior technology and brutal tactics, had overrun Thalkara defenses. Approaching the besieged Thalkara homeworld, Doris witnessed the remnants of the proud Thalkara fleet, now reduced to shattered, lifeless hulks drifting in space. Zharok forces had already landed, sweeping across the planet and massacring civilians. Thalkara ambassador Liera tearfully implored Doris to save his people from genocide. Doris and his veteran crew represented the Thalkara's last hope. Failure here would result in the extinction of an entire species. Determined to push back the invaders, Doris vowed to succeed or perish in the attempt. With a daring plan to strike at the heart of the Zharok occupation and dismantle their command structure, Doris faced what would be the most challenging mission of his life. The fate of the Thalkara hung precariously in the balance as the Indomitable readied its desperate assault. Doris assembled a squad of his elite soldiers, clad in sleek power armor that enhanced their strength and speed. Liera, determined, joined as their guide, his 4 eyes blinking with resolve. They crowded into a dropship that descended through the smoke-choked atmosphere of the Thalkara homeworld. Anti-aircraft fire streaked past the viewports, the ship narrowly evading missiles before landing in a crater near the enemy command center. As the strike team dispersed from the landing site, pulse rifles at the ready, they cautiously advanced through the rubble of the once great city. Broken spires and toppled monuments bore witness to the ferocity of the Zharok assault. Suddenly, plasma bolts sliced through the air as a Zharok patrol detected them. The hulking aliens fired from behind a collapsed wall, prompting Doris and his team to dive for cover. "Light them up," Doris barked, urging his team into action. The humans unleashed a barrage of high-powered rifle fire, their shots piercing clean through the thick hides of the Zharok. Yet, more hostiles swarmed in from all directions. Forming a perimeter, the humans mowed down wave after wave, spent ammo casings pinging off rubble as ozone from seared flesh filled the air. Liera, surprisingly adept with a sidearm for a diplomat, swiftly dispatched a Zharok who ventured too close. "We cannot delay, Captain. This way to the command center," he urged. Pressing forward through the ruined streets, they efficiently eliminated Zharok fire teams along the way. Superior human technology and training proved decisive against the invaders' numerical advantage. However, the sights they encountered along the route sickened them. Piles of butchered Thalkara civilians and sobbing survivors being dragged off as slaves by Zharok death squads. Doris seethed with barely contained fury as he dispatched a Zharok brute dragging a wailing Thalkara child with a plasma bolt between the eyes. "These bastards are going to pay," he growled. Ahead loomed the command center, a fortified pyramid bristling with gun emplacements. Getting in would be suicide. Liera presented an idea. "Captain, my intel report shows a vulnerable Zharok supply depot 4 clicks west." He pointed to a holographic map. "If we destroy their fuel and ammo reserves, it will cripple their ability to wage war." Doris grinned savagely. "I like the way you think, Liera. Let's give these aliens something to really scream about." They diverted course, blasting their way through occupied territory. Panicked Zharok comm chatter spiked as reports of the human assault spread. The invaders threw everything they had at them, but power-armored human shock troops were an enemy they'd never faced before. The supply depot sprawled before them, ringed with laser cannons as Zharok transports loaded up with ammo and reactor cores. Doris directed, "Hit them hard and fast. Catch the bastards with their pants down." The humans charged, all guns blazing, shredding Zharok bodies in all directions. Doris targeted a tower-mounted laser cannon pinning his team down. Launching a micromissile from his suit's shoulder pod, the projectile struck the tower's viewport, detonating it in a plume of vaporized metal and flesh. "Move up! Secure the depot!" Doris roared, leading the charge. His team stormed the depot gates, cutting down defenders left and right. But the Zharok fought like cornered animals, desperate to protect their vital supplies. A plasma bolt clipped Doris, searing a gash across his armor. Gritting his teeth, Doris put 2 shots through his attacker's skull as they waded into the thick of battle, purple Zharok blood mingling with red human blood. Doris became a one-man army, firing and reloading at blinding speed, leading his soldiers by example and courage under fire. Slowly, they pushed the enemy back from the depot grounds, victory tantalizingly close. But then, a panicked comm transmission pierced the chaos of battle. "Captain, massive warp signatures detected," his executive officer cried. "It's a goddamn invasion fleet. There'll be weapons hot on top of us in minutes." Doris looked up at the angry red sky as Zharok reinforcements began materializing in orbit. Hundreds of fresh enemy ships, ready to unleash hell. The Indomitable stood as the only barrier between them and the planet. "Take us right at them. Full combat speed." Doris ordered over the comm, "Buy us as much time as you can. We'll get this supply depot sorted and give you an opening." He knew he was asking his crew to charge into the jaws of almost certain death, but the Thalkara were depending on them. The Indomitable couldn't let them down. Doris surveyed the supply caches brimming with explosive ordnance, an idea forming in his mind as desperate and fearless as his ship's attack run. "We're going to blow this whole damn depot to atoms," he declared to his strike team. "Grab what explosives you can carry, rig them to the ammo dumps and fuel stores. This place is going to light up the whole continent. Let's move like we've got a purpose." They hurried to plant as many detonation charges as possible before the Zharok fleet arrived. No one knew if they would survive, but they were the Thalkara people's only hope. Failure was not an option. High above the besieged Thalkara homeworld, the space battle raged with terrible fury. The human fleet, led by the valiant UES Indomitable, hurled itself against the technologically superior Zharok forces with unwavering courage. Outnumbered and outgunned, the humans fought with the tenacity of warriors who knew the fate of an entire species rested on their actions. On the planet's surface, Doris and his strike team continued their desperate assault on the Zharok supply depot. Pulse rifles chattered, micromissiles streaked through the air, and explosions rocked the ground as the humans pressed their attack. Zharok defenders fell in droves, unable to match the sheer ferocity of the human onslaught. But as they fought, an urgent message crackled through Doris's comm unit. It was his executive officer aboard the Indomitable, her voice strained with barely controlled panic. "Captain, the Indomitable is taking heavy damage. Shields are failing, hull breaches on multiple decks. We can't hold out much longer against these reinforcements." Doris gritted his teeth, his mind racing. The Indomitable was the only thing standing between the Zharok fleet and the planet. If it fell, the Thalkara were doomed. But he also knew that the success of the ground mission was crucial to breaking the invaders' hold on the planet. He made the hardest call of his life. "Understood, Indomitable. You have to hold the line no matter the cost. We'll complete the mission down here and draw the bastards' attention away from you." "But, sir, what about?" "You have your orders, Commander Doris out." With a heavy heart, he cut the comlink, knowing he had just consigned his ship and crew to a desperate fight for survival. But there was no time for regrets. The mission had to come first. "Listen up," Doris barked to his strike team. "The Indomitable is in trouble, but we can best help her by raising hell down here. Double time it to that command center." They fought like demons, carving a path of destruction through the heart of the Zharok occupation. Power-armored boots trampled over the corpses of the enemy as they stormed the command pyramid. Withering plasma fire cut down Zharok defenders as they tried in vain to halt the human advance. At last, they breached the inner sanctum, a vast chamber pulsing with malevolent energy. But what they found inside defied belief. Arrayed before them were not just Zharok, but a ragtag assortment of a dozen alien species, Thalkara, Krite, Varani, and others victims of Zharok conquests. Instead of cowering captives, they stood as soldiers beside their masters, weapons trained on the humans. "My God!" Liara breathed. "The Zharok aren't just one race. They're a collective of enslaved species, forced to fight for them." Doris snarled in disgust. "Doesn't matter what they are. We're putting an end to their reign of terror here and now." With a battle cry, the humans charged, plunging into the midst of the enemy. It was a whirlwind of desperate close-quarters combat, a savage melee of flinging blades, hammering gun butts, and point-blank weapons fire. Doris was a machine of war, dealing death with every blow, his armor slick with the blood of a dozen races. At the center of it all stood a towering Zharok warlord, bellowing orders to his mind-shackled minions. Doris zeroed in on him, knowing this was the linchpin of the enemy forces. They met in a clash of titanic strength, human fury pitted against alien brutality. Doris ducked a swung plasma axe, feeling the heat of it singe his hair. He rammed his pulse rifle under the warlord's jaw, unloading a burst of fire point-blank, blasting away scales, flesh, and bone. But the Zharok commander proved monstrously tough. Hissing in pain, It wrapped its claws around Doris's throat, slamming him against a bulkhead. The world swam red, his vision tunneled. He could feel the alien fetid breath on his face. No, it couldn't end like this. The Thalkara were depending on him. His crew was depending on him. With a last desperate burst of strength, Doris brought his armored knee up into the warlord's groin with a sickening crunch. The Zharok howled and loosened its grip. It was the opening Doris needed. He drove an armored fist into the alien's throat, caving in its windpipe. As it staggered back, he followed up with a micromissile to the chest. The projectile detonated, blasting a gory hole straight through the warlord's torso. The Zharok commander toppled, its puppet soldiers collapsing with it like marionettes with cut strings. Doris stood over his vanquished foe, battered and bloody but unbowed. "Captain, the Zharok forces are in disarray," Liera shouted in amazement, monitoring comm channels. "When you killed the warlord, they lost cohesion. We did it." Doris allowed himself a grim smile as he surveyed the devastated command center, littered with the bodies of enslaved species. They had struck a blow against the Zharok war machine this day, shattered the invaders' chain of command, proven that the alien scourge was not invincible. But the cost had been high, and the fight was far from over. He could only hope his brave crew still lived to see this victory. The Thalkara would live to see another day, but there were countless other worlds out there groaning under the iron boot of Zharok occupation. He vowed that humanity would stand against the invaders, a shining beacon of defiance in the darkness. The Indomitable would be at the forefront, waging this war across the stars until every enslaved race was free. Doris reloaded his pulse rifle, the click of a fresh ammo cartridge echoing through the smoke-choked room. There was still work to be done.